Sepideh. Nice to meet you.
Hi, Hamza. I thought you would be
Something that,
your name. I was
yes,
it's
it's
unusual.
mostly a man's name.
Yes, exactly.
Uh, so something that I really took away from your film is Fatim by the end felt like a friend, like someone I knew. What
Mhm.
was the process like arranging all this footage, not just to show us who Fatim was, but what civilians like her are going through on the ground?
I really focused on the emotions that I got through the conversations in order to make my choice while editing. Because when we were conversing and exchanging on the video, during the video calls, it was the flow of the moment. You know, I had questions, she would react. It was very lively and kind of not improvised, but in a way, it was. I would follow the flow and her moods also. But afterwards, well, some of my questions were clearly meant to pinpoint some structural problems, hardships that she was going through, like other Palestinians in Gaza, the lack of food and water, and all the whole situation. And at some point, I think my partner asked me, it's like he was watching the footage, and he said, "But how many times do you ask her? Have you eaten?" Every time you ask her, I said, "Yes, because it's important." It
Yes.
was really utterly important for me, and it was one of the main questions. And I cut so many of them, but there are still so many of them in the film because it was essential. It was crucial. Have you eaten? And then she would say yes, no, and many times it was no. And then I had this amazing light in her face, despite the hunger, despite everything. And so this is what guided me really while editing.
Okay, wow. I really loved how you used her poetry and her music for us to understand how people in Gaza see life and death.
Mhm.
And so this is a delicate balance. Can you discuss how you were able to balance the political tone, but also paint an emotional and humane portrait of this person?
It always goes together, because if you don't do that, if there's not that balance is not there, then the film falls. Um,
Mm-hmm.
in order for the political message um, and the statement to be strong, you do need the human feelings around it. Otherwise, it becomes just a political statement or a pamphlet. So, but it did not come right from the beginning. I really concentrated on the video calls, first of all, shooting them, and when I started editing, because I started practically 10 days after, a week or 10 days after the first call, I started the editing process. But and I worked really more on the footage of that footage first. And then I integrated the newsreels because that was something that I was already doing. I'd been doing that for, um, months before I met her, even from the beginning of the conflict. After October 7th, I started filming the TV, wherever I was in different languages to just kind of observe how different channels and different media were giving this biased, version of the facts. And so I had those. And as I started talking to her, I also incorporated those bits. And then at a second stage came her photography, the choice of her photos. I had her photos with me from the beginning, but the way how to structure them in the film that came later. And then I
Yeah.
worked with sound in order to
Mm.
build moments like chapters. So once it was her song, once it was just music, or it was silence,
Mm.
and the
Yeah,
sound.
the score was striking.
Yes, I think the sound plays also a very special role in this film, even though it's a very simple sound design. But the fact that, for instance, the blast that I used twice is done used on a black image, and there's nothing to illustrate it. That is a deliberate choice from the beginning, and the fact also, and it was important for me that I didn't use any kind of sound effects. It's all sounds that she recorded and sent me with her phone, actually. And then we improved it, the sound and tried to, but all that is in the film comes from Gaza.
Yeah, even the bells near the end and the intensity, you could feel the doom coming.
Yes.
I want to touch on something you said. She was your window into Gaza, but you were also her window to the outside world.
Mm.
And so, how did this massive gap between her reality and what was being reported on the news affect how you shaped her story, but also how you challenged a lot of misconceptions regarding the people of Gaza?
Well, this was my feeling. I had this feeling right from the beginning, and that's what pushed me to go there, to go to Cairo and
Yeah,
try to cross, which I couldn't. And then I had the
yeah,
chance to get introduced to her. But um, I had this feeling that something was missing. I mean, when you watch the dominant media, I mean, the mainstream media, and you listen to them, you're like, but how is it that the news that I get on the social media are not there? They're not told the same way. There's always
yes,
an angle, in a weird angle. They always use a certain terminology, which is a bit spooky, and recently it has been changing, shifting a little bit, but still not that much. And now people dare talk about the fact that, oh, I hate what Israel is doing. I was listening to NPR today, and somebody said it, but it wasn't like this a few months ago. Nobody dared talk about Gaza like this. Nobody dared say it's a genocide. Nobody dared question what Israeli government and Netanyahu was doing. I mean, especially in the U.S. Um,
mhm,
the whole landscape was how would I say, a monoblock, um, supportive, political assessment of whatever was happening there without questioning that, well, hey, listen, I mean, there are children being killed, there are journalists being killed, women, civilians, old people who are unarmed, who don't have. So these are the things that I knew in a way, but I needed to hear from her also, to in order to be able to share it with the others, meaning first for me, but also for the others. And the way she says it, it's so simple and so clear. It's clear, crystal
mhm,
clear. And that when you
yeah.
listen to her, you're like, oh, yes, it's so obvious, but when you look at the media, watch the media, then this is not the image you get.
Actually, I want to touch on something you said. When you compare Gaza to other genocides, normally we get the pictures afterwards. You
Yes.
know, like look at all these mass graves. This is the first time we're seeing live the civilian perspective, and the mainstream media is reacting to it to try and control, as you said, the obvious. It's like what we're clearly seeing, which is that she doesn't have food. And so we've never seen what it's like for civilians on the ground. We get it
True.
through embedded journalists or, this kind of, it's complicated.
Yes.
And it's usually never complicated.
No, if you want to show it, I mean, I'm at all these journalists who are professionals and who know the ethics, who know what they should do, who know even if they don't have access, there are always means of getting the information and discussing it. But it's so partial, and I think there has been so much of silencing and fear, that has been injected to people of, "Ah, if I talk about this, I'm going to be considered a terrorist or an anti-Semite, or I don't know, a radical person who has weird views," whereas it is a human point of view, and a very obvious one, to say that I am against killing of civilians. This is against international laws. This is against human rights and international conventions. So what is wrong about saying that? This is the strange thing, that we live in a world and we have it right in front of us. We have it streamed, as you said. We get it right away, and yet it seemed impossible a few months ago to say these same things, to have a film like this out in the cinemas, to write articles about it. People would have been, a year before, because I started working on the film in order to send it to festivals very quickly last summer, because I was convinced of the emergency of what I was getting of the material. And it almost got in, but not. It didn't, and it was almost selected by big festivals. I'm not going to name them, but but it wasn't. And then something happened in the spring, and things were so bad, of course. And I think it was already overwhelming the world, and things started changing and shifting, and the public opinion shifted. And now we are, but you know what? The horrible thing is that I have a feeling that we get used to these, that it becomes banal, and then we forget about them, and this is what should not happen, really.
Yeah, it's quite scary what you said. A lot of spaces you would think would be neutral were infiltrated with fear, and a fear that we've never seen, despite
Yes,
the overwhelming evidence in front of us.
yes.
It's like there's nothing controversial, just stop killing.
Yeah,
And
exactly.
people were losing more jobs. It's nuts.
Yeah,
And
exactly.
I really loved the title of the film, To Put Your Soul in Your Hand and Walk. The first time I heard her say it, I felt her anxiety and fear. Like there was, especially towards the end of the film, you could see, you even asked her, like, I don't feel you're here with me. And, life in Gaza is very uncertain, even before October the 7th.
It was
And
always,
so,
yeah.
and so I took this saying as like, you have to live courageously and authentically. Like they don't have a choice, Yani. And so, for you as a filmmaker, how does this resonate with you when deciding on the types of stories you tell and the risks that you take?
This and the other sentence that she said at the beginning, the first day we met, she said, they can't defeat us because we have nothing
Yeah,
to lose. And I'm like,
yeah,
no, it's so strong that you can never forget it. And I asked her, I mean, before that, like, how does it feel like being a Palestinian in Gaza? And she says, I'm proud. And you're like, wow. And she never complained. This is,
yeah,
she never ever complained. It's not that I didn't put it in the film. She never complained,
yeah,
period. And this is
yeah,
something I think that is given to Palestinians in Gaza, especially, and generally, this kind of resilience. I don't know if resilience, it kind of gets on my nerves to use this, but it is the word that everybody is using. But it's beyond resilience, because what does it mean? Resilience means, okay, you're having a hard time, but you're strong enough to keep holding. What does that mean? What exactly does it in hold? There's something that is unfair in this word, but I mean, this amount of energy and optimism and dedication, determination. I know, as an Iranian exile, I've been through quite a lot, but it's really not, I mean, far from being comparable with what she lived through and what other Palestinians have lived through. When I see her mother, she's the only one who survived the attack. And I'm like, I mean, she lost almost all her children and her husband and the house, everything. Um, and she still has that bright smile, on her face. And it helps. It is a lesson of humanity, to hold and
yeah. Yeah, as you said, her smile was something that was striking throughout the film. And
yes.
I don't like the word resilience either, but
Mm.
something about everything. It's cruel, as you said, the world is unfair. But
Yes.
there was something where she's like, I'm gonna have to document my story now because I can't live the life that I want. And that moment really shattered me.
Yes.
Um,
Yes,
but
yes. Have you been to Gaza yourself?
no, actually, I have worked in the Middle East. I've worked in, Saudi Arabia, Oman. So Gaza, what's been happening there for years has always been heartbreaking. And
Yes.
this was always sadly predictable where this was going.
Mm.
Um, but
And I
your
think
film was,
we need to stop. We need to make it stop. This is what we should do.
and there's no end in sight, it feels like.
Mm.
But Sepideh, I really beautiful movie.
Thank you.
Um, thank you for this conversation.
Thanks for your words and your emotions. Thank you.